Hello, my name is Georgie Dragonfly. Welcome to another Cosmic Heart Conversation podcast, where we're joined with me and also the wonderful Sufi Boggie. He's now going to bring his wonderful energy into this space and tell us all a little bit about himself. Welcome.
Thank you. And hello all. My actual name is Paul Brighton, but my given name is Sifu Boggie, which were my given names in the spiritual world, the martial art world, in the Daoist world. So Taiso means supreme, Taiso means lower chaos, big trouble. And it was my first name given because my students, my Sifis recognised that I'm a little bit of a low key, but a sort of like Winnie the Pooh low key. That I used to find myself in the wrong place at the right time, and could easily or because also I didn't know until much later, but I'm actually diagnosed dyslexic with dyspraxia and a slight touch of autism. Now, actually, what a lot of people don't know is that in the Fortune 500 companies, they actually see these as skills, not actually as disabilities. Now, dyslexia, what does it sort of puts you outside the box, or you see things in a different perspective. And a lot of people say, Boggie, you don't think outside the box, you think outside the universe. Possibly. But yeah, so because of sort of I could see things a different way, or I come from a different perspective, it meant to my Sifus, the first name, Taiso, is that you have you can look like big trouble, but you're opening up that can of worms and letting the worms free. You're changing things in certain ways. And Boggie means the balancer between the chaos and the calmness. So it's that idea of opening up to different stuff, flipping things around, seeing a mess of 10,000 things and somehow being able to find the one thing that will trigger it off to balance it all up. And that's sort of where my names come from. And over the last 40 years, I've studied the Daoist arts. And the Dao means the way, the path, the balance. And I've done healing arts, martial arts, spiritual arts, done many, many different types, because my teachers very much believed everything you learn enhances everything else you do. And in the Daoist arts, there's many different ways to be a Daoist. So there is there's the drunken Daoist, but that actually most of the time doesn't actually contain alcohol. It's actually, and it's sort of linked a little bit to light language in the essence of, in drunken Daoist, you imitate being drunk. So this thing of being totally out of control and allowing the body totally to rebalance itself. And everybody, I actually dated somebody who dumped me because they were convinced I was alcoholic because I did the drunken Daoist. You're just pretending. You're pretending this. No, it really is. It really is a thing. And that was a thing. That was a very. Well, that goes back to being like chaos and calmness. Is that like somebody sees it in one way, and you flip it the other. But yeah. So there's drunken Daoist. And then that also goes into the Daoist like alchemy, which is either external or internal. It goes into Barefoot Doctors, but the Chinese Barefoot Doctor was about, rather than in China, the philosophy of in ancient China is you paid your doctor for being healthy. If you weren't healthy, you didn't pay your doctor. So your doctor's goal wasn't, nowadays, medicine, pharmaceutical companies, they maintain your illness, but the Eastern philosophy was to maintain your health. So therefore, they only got paid if you were healthy. And so I'm actually trained as a Barefoot Doctor. And then one of the other things, beeping outside. One of the other things I was also training in was the Dragon Dog Shaman. Now, the Dragon Dog Shaman had an interesting bunch because they were, unlike myself, they were great lovers and philosophers of science and spirituality. So they blended the two together, and so everything. So I can be seen, and I can be seen as very spiritual, and I do lots of energy work and lots of different energy stuff. But there's always I love, especially at this moment in time, this point in our reality is a great place to be for both, because quantum physics is literally proving all the ancient knowledge. So there are scanners, or there are detectors that have detected the auras, the meridians, the chakras, the Merkaba, the Torah field, which is also the flower of life. The Torah field actually is in the heart. When we talk about the heart energy, it's actually the field in the heart that affects everything. And science is proving all of this. Now, the interesting thing is you've got to look at the right science, because mainstream science is telling you diddly squat, and wants to keep it in a certain narrative. But actual quantum physics, there have been so many in the last 50 years, especially. There's been so many discoveries that would, if people actually looked, they'd blow their mind. It's like science proved around about 20 years ago that reincarnation probably does exist, because there's a thing of they do a case study, and if a case study has to be accepted, and there is over 20,000 case studies for reincarnation where somebody's died, and also like a child has said, oh, I remember being this, and a village, and they've sent in either China, Africa, or India, and they sent a private detective to find out if that the story that the child is telling is true. Then the same detective or another detective also checks out to see if that child was, checked out if anybody in their family knows that person and could have given that story. And they've got 20,000 cases of that. Now, normally in science, you have 800 cases of something. Science says, well, it's the probability of that being true is high. And there's 20,000 cases. So like that alone, there's so many things that we're not being told. There's so many things that are being sort of withheld because it doesn't fit certain demographics, and it doesn't fit certain understandings. And so with the Dragon Dog Shaman, so the understanding about science was there. They understood about energy being conscious, which has been proven that actually consciousness itself, atoms themselves are conscious, and everything is energy, and energy is conscious itself. The universe is actually conscious, and again, there's actually a lot of science to show that. The CIA released that back in the 80s. And it's one of these things, there's so much out there. But so there's this thing with like Reiki, but also like with the light language. The light language, I call it I tend to call it what one of my Sifus used to call it, which is light code, because you have different. It's not just words. You actually have like the movement of hands, but even the writing, artwork. There is actually, when you actually go back into history, there is, but you have artists, you have people who had great speeches that said, oh, it was channeled, it came from somewhere else. And so you can have some light language that is very understandable, as in maybe in actual words. It's free, and it's just the idea. Well, We'll get to that. But so there's some light language that's very understandable, but then there's a lot. So you can have light language that is movement, that is drawings, and the whole idea is it's just that opening up, that connecting to that information. But it's just understanding that it's not a dark thing, because if everything is the universe, if you are the universe and everything is one, and also Daoist, there is no good or bad, then the light language isn't scary. It's demons, which is what because you look into Christianity, they called light language speaking in tongues. They demonized it, and so that's the thing, is that it's become popular now, and there's, because of where we are in the universe and what time we are in the universe, there's a very good reason for that. It's because it's the golden age. We are at the dawn of the age of Aquarius. We are at the dawn of the golden age. And that's why it's all coming back. But yeah, light language isn't a new thing. It's just a reawoken thing. We're seeing it again and suddenly realizing it's there.
And where did it first come in to your awareness? Through your practices? I'd love to know how it was all developed.
Yeah, so it goes back to in the Taoism and the oh, actually it doesn't. Okay, so the first, the first time I was more aware of it was with my training in Taoism. My Sifus were Shaolin trained, Daoist trained, and like I say, around about. Well, I started doing all of that at 12, and it was about 15 that I first saw my Sifus do a dragon dog ceremony, and in dragon dog ceremony, light language or light code it is part of it. It's part of parcel. It's just it's not a big dramatic thing. It's just something we do, and they do it in a certain way. So with the dragon dogs, they actually have sort of like a chant that they say at first. And there's a very long one and there's a very short one. The very short one is Longa Wu Jian Shun Shi Shen. So, or sometimes it's Shun Shi Shen. But so Longa is dragon dog, Wu Jian is shaman, and Shun Shi Shen is flowing energy spirits. And sometimes, or they add Longa Wu Jian Wu Qi, which is Wu Qi means unlimited possibilities. So you're opening yourself up. The dragon dog, you're calling in the dragon dog, and because the dragon dogs are said to be beings that came to Earth and brought the flower life, sacred geometry. So the a lot of people call them lion dogs, and it's like, well, actually, it's not a lion dog. They didn't have lions in China. It's the head of a dragon. If you look at it, it's a dragon. It's not a lion. So, but they said these beings actually came to China somewhere between 5 to 10, probably more like 10,000 years ago. And they brought sacred geometry, and the people that learned from the dragon dogs became the shamans. So it's the dragon dog shaman. So that process, like you do this chant, and then it's so Wu Qi is a circle. You ever see in Chinese philosophy the drawing of a circle, and drawing of the circle is opening up to all possibilities. So it's in essence it's the letting go, and just allowing to come in, whatever, allowing to say whatever it says. I almost said come in, and it's not come in as in you let something take you over. It's more about being free flowing. It's a little bit like dancing. If you ever done like dancing or even doodling, put a pen on a piece of paper and just let yourself doodle, and just and rather than trying to use the forebrain, which makes you do something, is that actually just to let it flow and drift. So the biggest thing with all of this is that actually, whether you do it verbally, whether you do it actually, drawing, or even in movement, because like I say, like language in Taoism, they actually have spontaneous qigong, which is also light code. And spontaneous qigong is basically allowing yourself to freely move, which is no different than dancing. So it doesn't have to be from here. So now the thing is that I never really realized until later, but around about 6, I sort of started remembering past life stuff, or I just thought I was making stuff up. I was dreaming, but I was actually remembering past lives. And I remember back then, or later, remember just spontaneously doing sounds and noises, and it would be, it would be, just a a thing, and people ignored it. Oh, it's a child playing. But now I look back, and that was the frequencies coming in then. It's no different to hearing a song and you starting singing along with the song, or you moving with the song. The light code, or light language, light code is basically you opening up your ears and listening to the and singing along with that song, or singing along with that energy. And so it's this. The thing is that when we were kids, at some point, most of us as kids were told, stop playing, stop fidgeting, stop moving, be still, and they will start, we'll start to learn that you should do this and do that and not be spontaneous. Fidgeting is light code. When you fidgeted, you were moving and twisting and turning. You were allowing the energies in your body to be free, and you were actually healing yourself. That's the crazy thing that I learned, is that fidgeting in the Eastern philosophy is actually healing your body, because when you're stiff, that creates illness. So actually fidgeting is healing, and fidgeting is flowing with the universe and receiving information, receiving light code. So for me, it's, it's, how do I do it? Easy. Open up your mouth and just let something out. Stop thinking of what you should be saying or doing, and just let it happen. That's the difference. With the Dragon Dog Shaman, they start you off. They say, longa wu, longa wu qian, shun qi shen, or longa wu qian, wu qi, and then start playing with that word, and all, especially a word or a sound that is not in your normal dialect. Play with that and just allow it to repeat it a couple of times and see what comes off of it. It's no different for a musician who does freestyle, or like jazz. You actually listen to a lot of the old jazz. I think that's light language, because I'm very much a see and feel energy. And when I listen to the old jazz, freestyle jazz, it's like, whoa, that's energy coming off of there. That's light code. That's light code. And that's the point, is that when you allow yourself to freestyle, and poets, the whole idea of poetry is that when you allow yourself to freestyle, you're literally connecting into the universe. And what I would say is that, it doesn't necessarily have to be ununderstandable. It doesn't necessarily have to be from here. It can be from your body. It can be, drawing movements. And the biggest thing, which is what I love about this show, the biggest thing, it has to be from your heart.
Mm.
So you have to stop being here and start being here.
Mm.
And it's allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to just be, to just do, to just, you know, that there is no good or bad, that you're not sounding silly or you're not being naughty, because that's at some point what happened when you was a kid, and then you've grown up with that, and the whole idea, you're still a kid. We're always kids. We never grow up. That's what's in our heart as a child. But now you're the parent. You have to give yourself permission to be able to play. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I've spoken about that, and I really relate to your, the dyslexic journey as well. Like I had all of that, very much being like a fidget, someone that was, off and away with the fairies as a child, and yet actually, I was just in probably a completely other dimension to like everything else that was going on, and nobody really had that awareness of like, oh, maybe she just needs to be maybe help her ground a little bit, or and we haven't necessarily got those tools in the schools to share for children to actually work through that and harness it as well, because it's a different, like you said, it's a different style of processing information and also bringing information through us as well, I believe. And something I felt was really interesting as well, you said about like past memories and things like that. So do you feel that that helped to make it easier for you as well, if you had all these memories kind of coming forward, that you could accept that this was something that was a part of your path?
I think what puts me, because I'm very much aware that I'm not normal, but normal is only average or weird. And I'm definitely the weirder weird, and I like being the weirder weird. But I think what helped was the one thing, like if we, you was talking, and I'm just sitting there, and it's that one thing. If say to anybody now, is everything you did as a kid that you was told off for, you're now allowed to do. Just think of it like that. Everything as a child, that is, don't do this, don't do that, don't fidget, don't make up silly words, don't talk in silly languages. My daughter's 20 now, but when she was like 9, like she said, oh, Dad, can we pretend to speak a foreign language? Of course, Ketra, of course we can. She was speaking like her.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And I've never, actually brought that up with her in that sense. But she's speaking like code. But we, and we were walking down the road. And we were talking to each other. And it's the not giving a fig about other people. We've been taught to worry about what other people think and feel, and it's letting all of that go. And then so there's that. When you're 12 years old and you being bullied for being different, pretty much since you were 9, and then you have a Chinese guy come up to you in martial arts, in a class, but he comes up to you and says, I recognize your chi. I have been your Sifu before. You have been my Sifu before. It is my turn to be your Sifu again. And now for me, that made perfect sense. Anybody else, they'll go, what? But for me, that made perfect sense. And it was, so I was lucky in that sense that I had people come in at the right time to go, whoa, you're not crazy. You're not. Well, I say the right time. I almost tried to commit suicide from 9 to 11 until I met. I tried about 8 or 9 times. Hated the world. Hated how the world like that. People would say one thing, but inside they're thinking something totally different. And the world was, just seemed to be deceptive and just didn't make any sense. So I have been through, a dark tunnel. I have been through, that stuff. But it's seeing that, you can actually give yourself permission. And this is the thing, I think we've forgotten who's in power. We've given power to the outside world, especially inside you. You have the power, and if you go in your room, you can do whatever you freaking want. You can talk line language. The cows come home. You don't have to do it publicly. So if you don't, you have the power inside you. That's the whole point. And also, what helped me, what helped me help others, is this weird stuff that happens out in the universe, and most people don't realize. Like example, I said, there's lots of experiments already done, and scientists know that atoms are conscious. And the alphabet agencies in America released in the 80s a case study they did in the 50s that the universe is conscious, everything and everything is conscious, and we actually talk to the universe all the time. But we don't. But because we're not listening to it properly, it's not actually helping us, or we're not reacting to us. And the Fortune 500 and 100 index businesses use psychics, remote viewers, telepaths, empaths, chargers, which is somebody a bit like a muse, somebody who can boost up the people in that room. Akashic record readers, even people who can understand or read light code. They use them in business all the time. They just don't tell us. So it's like a reverse Harry Potter. We're world. We're living in the Muggle side of it, and the magic's happening all the time. And you feel it, but every time you go to do it, you get somebody go, "Don't be so stupid." And that's the thing. You've got to stop listening to those people saying, "Don't be so stupid." And that could even be inside you. That could be part of your own self saying, "Don't be so stupid." You've got to allow yourself just do it. Just live
like that unprogramming, isn't it? Of especially if you have gone through either bullying or and I say, in fact, I even put the way that teachers are towards the pupils as bullying. Really, if I was to really reflect back on it, it's not the behaviour that is really needed to teach and to be in service to children when you're just constantly trying to put them in fear. And we have to unlearn that, whether that's happening at schools, at home, in friendship groups, just general society. But I think what's kind of been a good and a bad thing now, I suppose, is we've got the social media. So in one sense, yes, it's kind of filled with lots of illusions that make people feel insecure, but then there's also so much of this light codes and free expression being accessed now that gives people the ability to go, okay, well, I can choose to be myself if I want to. There is that option, and they can also find people like yourself doing what you're doing and be inspired by that and even learn and teach. Whereas, that was not always accessible. If we live in certain areas that there isn't, these kind of teachings, if we can't afford to go traveling and go to India or China to go to these studies, to be able to then get it online is a pretty good thing as well.
This is this is the amazing thing with our online. Even like for me, I teach all over the world now because of online. Is that you have literally access to the world. And that's a really, really important thing to know. I mean, one thing I will say with light code with me is even myself, it's something I've only made it's something I've been more public about only in the last 10 years. Since my show, when I first did my show, The Way of Conscious Mindfulness, I started to be more open about stuff. I was always I did all this stuff, but it was very closed off because because in Daoist philosophy is that resistance is a waste of time. So if you have to argue with somebody about what you do, you're wasting your time. You're not ready. They're not ready. You're expending your energy on a pointless argument. Don't do it. So when it comes to and right at the beginning, boy, did I have haters coming out of the yin yang. I had haters coming left, right, and centre all the freaking time. And at first, because I love science, it's like, oh, I don't believe this. Science, one more science. It's science. It's proof. And then it was like, no, I'm actually wasting my time doing that. And now it's just somebody's hater. Oh, I love you. Love you so much. Bye. Close the door on the way out. And so it's that thing of, do it for you. Don't do it for anybody else. Do it for you. And actually, some of the best plays, especially if you're doing, especially if you're doing audio light code, go into the woods, go into a park, I used to have one of my friends who was a teacher himself, the Barefoot Doctor. He was known as Stephen Russell. He would do this thing, and it was to release like anger or stress, but it is like a form of light language as well. He would do this thing where he would have a dog lead, no dog. He didn't have a dog, but he would have a dog lead. And whenever he got angry, and he because he worked up in London, he'd go into one of the London parks, and at the top of his voice, he would shout, "Rolly!" And he would be calling this imaginary dog, but it's releasing his charge. So here we go. And people would go, oh, have you found him yet? Have you found Rolly? And say, oh, no, I'm still looking. But it was to release. It was his technique of releasing. And it's and this is going back to that whole, the drunken Qigong, is that we actually do, a lot of people do spontaneous movement or light code or light language when they're freaking drunk. It's like when you're drunk, you're moving about and you're saying, you're coming out with all this stuff and nobody understands. But because you're drunk, it's okay, and that's what drunken Qigong was actually all about. Is actually getting to this point of no space where there are no inhibitions, there are no, you stop trying to control everything you say and do, and stop restricting yourself. And the whole the imitation of drunken Qigong was to allow yourself to be totally free flowing, because when you're totally free flowing and you get that too far, your foot will come up or something will come up and counter you and come back, and you allow yourself just to play and flow. And the whole thing of the light language is just taking one of my teachers would call it taking the break off the mind. So rather than the words must be like this in this certain way, it's just allowing it to just come out with whatever you come out with. And it's all good. It's all okay. There is, and this is this is a big thing in light code or light language. But actually, in life, there is no good or bad. There just is. You got to stop seeing things, comparing one thing with something else. Because this is what happens in life: is that I've got to do what the Jones do, or this is good and this is bad. It's like, you got to stop doing that, and you just got to allow things to, just to be. There's a thing that I always remember is that so we're British, us two, and in England it was like very improper to burp or blow off palm at the dinner, well, anywhere, but especially at the dinner table. Now in China, if you burp or pop at the table, it's actually seen as a compliment. It's seen that the food is releasing char. So burping and popping is char, what you no longer need. It's releasing the bad energies. So the whole idea of like burping and parking at the table was cha cha. They think it's awesome. They think it's brilliant. And it's been like when we was kids, you burped at the table. At first, everybody laughed and thought it was funny, and then at some point, they started putting the brakes on and stopping you. And it's like all of this stuff. It's allowing yourself just to play, because for me, for me, like code, like language, qigong, everything is play. And play should be played, and it's not getting to a point. I think sometimes I see some people, I see one or two people doing light language who seem to take it ever so seriously, a little bit too seriously for my concern, and oh yes, and then this, and it's like, no, just play, let it go, and play, and it is what it is. It's like yes, some light language is there to be understood, but some light language is there to lift your heart. You don't go outside and feel a breeze and that's saying now I must buy some fruit next Tuesday at 2:00. It's a breeze. It's there to blow. It's there for you to feel. It's, don't worry about trying to interpret what you're saying, because it could literally just be there to lift away your stress and worry. It could be there just to expand the energy. I think there are some people in this world, who have incarnated this time, who are literally there just to boost the signal. That's what in the FT500 indexes, a charger is literally somebody who sits there blasting energy into that room, and that's what they do. They just blast the energy, and then everybody receives that energy, and they think clearer, or they come up with ideas. But their purpose is literally to blast the energy and raise the vibration. And sometimes I think that's what it's for. It's just for that. Whether you understand it or not, it doesn't matter. Is it changing your mood? Does it make you feel good? That's to me, that's more important than what does it mean.
Yeah, we can get like over fixated, and I've been there with tuning into that one, and like, is it going to be a good vibration or not? And there can be that going on as well. Like, I think there's probably a comparison, maybe something that we need to look within ourselves when that's kind of coming up and we're feeling that towards others. I always like to call it, and I like that you related to nature and the wind, because I really see it as innate nature, or like innate wisdom, which is to be playful. Instead of the whole, we need to seek our inner child, the child. What about just the innate, that natural part of us that has always been present with us and wasn't distorted as a child? It wasn't damaged. And that's really what we're searching for. It's not a child, because it is a part of a child. It's all of it though, but it's like, just because it's almost like, you have to kind of go in and out of being this child to then being an adult. But actually, if you just think of it as a innate, omnipresent, playful, expansive, expressive being, beautiful.
And I do find I think it's this with everything, is that if you ever come across either in your own light language, or you listen to somebody else's, you go, I don't like that. When you don't like something, it's normally something that there's a saying in Qigong, which is energy exercises that I do, is that the Qigong you least like is probably the one you need to do the most. So sometimes when you're challenged by a certain energy and you go, I don't like that, because I can, myself and a friend of mine, Dr. Laney, he does lots of dragon light language, which is very we know it as being very low. So and people, that sounds demonic, don't like that. And it's like, No, that's coming from the earth. It's coming from the low vibrations. If you actually listen to the frequencies of the earth and the different planets, you know, and people, oh, I don't like them. That's natural noise. That's the natural frequencies of the planet. You don't like them because you've made yourself, in a way, artificial. You're trying to artificialize yourself from nature. Nature has the depths and it has the highs and it has everything in between. So, you know, is just from my perspective, is always whenever you hear something, or even if you feel, oh, you know, I didn't like the sound of that. It's like, yeah, but maybe that's what you need. It's, you know, because there is no good or bad. There just is. You stay in your heart, then it's always from the heart. If if something's, you know, making you sad, or, well, even if it's making you sad, you know, sometimes you need to release something. And the biggest thing with trauma is that people who don't release it will come back to it. It will keep coming back. So if you don't allow yourself to be that energy and cry, or even be a little bit angry and shout and scream if you need to, if you don't go through that, you won't let it go. But this is also what, for me, Light Code does. It draws up things that need to be released. It will, you know, because you know what, you know, or, you know, what is it? But why is it? Why is light language there? Well, it's there to rebalance you, because we are in illusion of thinking that we are this physical body. Our consciousness is formless and shapeless, and can expand out to the size of the universe, but we're fitting part of it into this body to experience what it's like in this realm. So light language, like code, is actually like frequencies that help you expand and grow and help you go back to what you're supposed to be. So that's why I prefer the word code to language. Because even code technically sort of it's coding, but it's the whole idea is that language tends to say, oh, it means something. Well, it does mean something, but it doesn't necessarily mean words. It might be it's beyond words, and it's about expanding what you are. That makes sense.
Yeah, I really like that. I really enjoyed that, hearing that. And there's so many things that I actually want to ask you just within that one conversation. So I'll go into the sound vibrations and and how that maybe relates to the different dialects as well, because I imagine that you experience different dialects, and then from your perspective with the Daoist way, I'd love to know how that weaves in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there are certain languages that are derivatives of light language out there. The Chinese language is tonal. Is that so say like the word book. If I just say book, it could just mean book. But if I say book, it could mean an open book. If I say book, it could be a closed book. So book, it's a scary book. Book, it's a happy book. So using the tone literally changes the words. This is why in the Chinese language, so the Tao Te Ching, which is sort of like the Taoist book of scripture, there were over 30 different, almost totally different translations, because each word actually has 4 to 5 different meanings, depending on the tone. So, and especially in the West, we're not really used to that. You know, a word is a word, and it's really and which I find very interesting that it's become that, because when you look at like in the Navajo, again, the dialects and the sounds actually create different words, and so our reality, most languages that have derived now are very set in boxes, so we're very stuck in boxes. Light language is so many different frequencies that the frequencies change and twist and turn, and that's why I think, because a lot of people will say like there's a particular light language light code I do that people say, oh, it's very unusual, and it sounds more like, I don't know, slightly between dolphin or whale, and somebody said, do you remember the old computer tapes where you put and you hear the noises of the game loading? It says, you sound like that, Boggie. Really? Okay. But it's, yeah, because for me, like I say, when I talk about stuff, I feel energy and I see things. So when people just say something, you say like, oh, a chair, a wooden chair with a red leather seat and gold studs in the back, I've already got that in my head. I can actually literally see that in my head. And some people are like that, but not everybody is. Also, but also when people talk, I actually see things not necessarily as a structure. I see them as energy. So when people say about like, like spiritual things, or my spirit guide is a banana on a horse. Well, mine's just pure energy. Mine's, I see it actually as energy. And so the tones create energy, the tones and the frequencies. And so it's more, and this is where or at the beginning, people were trying to make sense of it, and they sort of tried to make structure, or they tried to do it more. And yes, and I do think there is language as a language, but I think when you actually just let it flow and let it drift into different noises and do click and whir and or go up and down in tones, I think that's more, they're more going into the broader spectrum of the energies of the universe, or the light language, light code of the universe, because it's like, because if you see it as words, then you're seeing it in a very narrow perspective. But if you allow yourself to do whatever, it'd be like dance. If you only just moved your hands, then there's a very narrow perspective. You allow yourself to use your whole body and get the whole body activated. It becomes far more broader. It becomes far more expansive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And like, it's not like the linear writing of like a sentence, is it? When you're hearing the words, they're not sentences.
Well, this is the thing in China. For starters, they use ideograms. So each one's, like a picture is a couple of like squiggles or terms. Then they go in columns, and then they go from the right to the left. So a Chinese book, actually starts at the back and goes to the front. And that, so that whole idea is, it flips your brain around. It makes you see things in a different way, and I think that's helped a lot as well. Learning other totally other language, learning being English and learning, or knowing English and learning French and German. That's awesome. That really is cool. But try to learn Swahili. Try to learn Hebrew. Try to learn Chinese when they're doing things in a totally different way. And then it's all about the nuances, and it's all about, and it takes you off that linear path. We sort of said it already. It's allowing yourself to stop putting yourself in rules. Stop thinking it has to be in a certain way, and just allow yourself to be the 3-year-old in a sweetie shop and run rampant and just do whatever. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, because I've had people sort of ask me like, "Oh, I'm trying to make the sound, doing the sound. I don't feel like it's real, like I'm doing it." And I'm like, "Just keep doing that. You need to break free of like feeling like it's a rigid structure and it needs to be a certain way, and then it will start to feel more natural."
Well, there's also
be natural.
Yeah, 100%. And there's also actually 2 versions of light language, which not everybody sort of understands or gets. There's external light language and internal light language, because when you hear your voice and then you put it on a recording, and people say, you say, "Oh, that doesn't sound like me." Well, that's what everybody else hears. What you hear, because of the bones in your ear, the vibration is vibrating a certain frequency, so you're hearing your voice different to everybody else. Same is going to happen with the light language, is that the light language you're getting in your head is actually different to the light language everybody else is getting. So there's actually two, there's one for you and there's one for the world. And not everybody either gets that or even knows that, but you know, because like, you know, when it's a known fact is that we actually hear a different tone to our voice. We hear a different voice than everybody else hears. I've heard my voice, it's like, freaking hell, I sound like an idiot. But you know, the voice in my head is totally different. And so when you sing, when you do light language, it's the same thing. You've got an internal one that you're hearing, and then you've got one that the world is hearing. And what happens, or a lot of time with musicians, is they sort of train to ignore the internal voice and only hear the external voice, because that's the external voice. So they're matching the external voice with everything else. But the internal voice is important as well. Is that, you know, is that there is one for you and there's one for the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's I guess it makes it so important why for people to play with it themselves and not necessarily just keep listening to other people, because you've got something internally that wants to come through for you.
Yeah. Because whatever's resonating for you inside will resonate for somebody else outside.
Yeah, I like that. And with that being said, I'm wondering whether you would like to share some of your light language, maybe in a transmission for people that are listening, and there'll be something that they can receive from that. Yeah, a multidimensional experience.
Well, also, I mean, because also with me is that while that's going on here, I'm actually sending out energy. I'm doing Chinese Reiki, so Shin Chi Shin. So my hands normally moving. So which is the charger would be somebody who blasts energy. So I'm actually blasting energy to myself and blasting energy. So I tend to, when my hands are moving, they're actually sending energy out at the same time. So it's not just what you hear, it's what you feel as well. So it's two lots of light coding in one.
Yeah, that's a good one, because that's something that's been coming up actually. Just want to say, in for me is reminding people that our senses are going to be different and experience everything differently, even if it's just an auditory thing that you're experiencing, or the hand energy, like how it moves through your senses is totally unique. So just letting that be open to that and be surrendering to what you experience.
Yeah. Don't be anybody else. Be you.
Yeah.
You just do you. Don't worry about what other people do and how other people do it. You be you. That's the point.
I love that. Right. Thank you. Let's go. If everyone's ready.
I'll start off with I don't always do it, but I start off with the standard. So, Lunga Wu Jian Wu Qi Longa Wu Jian Wu Qi Longa Wu Jian Wu Qi Wu Qi Wu Za Wu Sha Zi Wu Zi Wu Wu 山鸡炸物死炸物有死无死哇死呀无死哎无死无死有死无死无死无无杀无死无杀无 无伞，我是无喜无情之家无大之有这个无山你吧，
Thank you for that. That was amazing. And yeah, I saw lots of different things.
Because for me, it's almost like sort of going through a radio signal. So I mean, yeah, I don't always listen to it afterwards, because like I say, I know that there's two different versions, because there's the version I hear and the version everybody else hears. But it is almost like, yeah, there's different. There was definitely like 3 or 4 different versions in there, in different styles in there, always all coming from, and the whole idea of like, if somebody says, "Oh, I'm channeling this, I'm channeling that," it's it's still your interpretation. It's like you can, like in England, there are many different accents in England, so you can speak English in a Welsh accent or a Scottish accent or a London accent, and it's the same. I think with all of this is that there are different. You are an accent, so your accent will be different to, you could be speaking, doing a certain light language, but or a certain frequency, but it will still be in your style. So, again, don't compare yourself to anybody else. It's your style, it's your style.
Yeah, definitely. And like sort of associating it with specific star systems and stuff like that, because again, it is that multi-layer that comes in within it. Yeah, that's interesting. So, where can people find you, and also, have you got any particular offerings at the moment that you want to share?
So, right. So where they can find me? So you can on Facebook. I'm now just under Sifu Boggie is my profile. I have got the Way of Sifu Boggie, which is my page, and then the show page is the Way of Conscious Mindfulness. On YouTube, I'm under Sifu Boggie. On Instagram, guess what? I'm under Sifu Boggie. SIFU BOGGIE. And I'm actually coming, well, in the next about a month or two's time, I'll actually be creating an app. And so it will be probably something like, I'm still playing with the name, but it'll probably be something like Sifu Boggie Qigong Reiki, or something like that, because you can't have a 20-mile long title. So unfortunately, I can't fit everything that I do on it, so I have to keep it quite simple. But yes, and that will be on both Android and on iPhone, and it will be there will be a free side to it, free community with some challenging, some simple exercises that will open up your mind, body, and spirit, and it will also have a Reiki challenge or energy challenge as well. It may even actually end up being a light code challenge. I've been a little bit resistant to it, I must admit, and you bringing me on is all right. Maybe I will do some light code. Yeah. So there may have to be some light code on there as well. But yeah, so there'll be the free side, and then there's also the courses that I teach. But my biggest thing is I love classes. Is that people have gone into this course workshop thing, but again, it's about separation, about sticking things in boxes. The traditional way of teaching is in a class that you come each week, and you slowly grow and expand. And you stay as long as you need to. So I do like that old tradition of classes, like both live and recorded. So that'd be about if you go onto YouTube, there is Willow Tree Qigong Twist to Waist, free exercise out there. There's always free stuff out there. And like I said, the light languages, there's a couple of places where I've done some light code, and it's this wonderful lady here. I think I'm being nudged to do some more, so maybe I might. So there you go.
Yay. So thank you again for coming on and sharing like your side of this perspective with light codes, because I've been wanting to speak to more people on here anyway about these ancient traditions and how it really does correlate with what we're all experiencing now. So yeah. It's been a really good perspective to hear that. So thank you. And all the links will be in the description below. So if you need to find out, and so you can start to do some qigong and start to incorporate your light language with that as well, and learn how to free flow. And even if you just need to reach out because something came up during this podcast, but please do share it, like, subscribe to it, and also keep following, keep coming back as we grow together. All right, loads of love. Bye for now. Oh, we're gonna have
I was just going to say, if you had any experiences with the light code, leave comments down below. So leave it for Georgia to see. So and that's the thing, when you hear it, tell people, what do you feel, what do you experience from it, because it's always different. Anyway.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.